In the early 1900s, when automobiles were still new enough to attract crowds, license plates were far from standardized. Some drivers used wood, others used leather, porcelain, or painted metal. In certain places, separate numbers were attached by hand to whatever backing plate was available. Then cars stopped being rare. Governments suddenly had to identify thousands of vehicles, then hundreds of thousands, and eventually millions. Somewhere along the way, one feature became familiar. Instead of simply painting the characters onto a flat surface, manufacturers pressed them upward from the metal. More than a century later, that method looks strangely old-fashioned. Modern printing can make flat plates that are durable, reflective, sharp, and easy to read. Yet embossed characters are still common. So why has a manufacturing technique from the early age of motoring survived when newer alternatives already exist? To answer that, we have to return to the moment license plates stopped being homemade objects and became part of a much larger system. Let's get into it right here on Secrets of Simple Things. When drivers made their own identification, early cars appeared faster than the rules designed to manage them. Vehicle registration was still developing, and in some places owners were responsible for displaying their own identification. That produced an odd collection of solutions. One plate might be cut from wood. Another could be made from leather or painted metal. Porcelain enamel offered a tougher finish, while some designs used individual metal characters fixed to a backing plate. For a small number of vehicles, that was workable. But car ownership expanded quickly, and governments needed something more consistent. Every vehicle had to carry a unique identifier, and the plate displaying it needed to meet several practical demands at once. It had to be inexpensive enough for large-scale use, fast enough to manufacture without slowing registration, and clear enough to recognize from a reasonable distance. Methods that worked well in small batches became awkward when production increased. Enamel plates could be durable, but manufacturing them required more effort. Separate characters could be clear, but attaching them added another step. The problem had changed. A license plate was no longer just an object made for one car. It was becoming a mass-produced piece of public infrastructure. And once governments were producing them by the million, making the plate was only half the job. The identification still had to survive years on the road. It was keeping that number readable. A license plate lives almost its entire life outdoors, often in one of the dirtiest positions on a vehicle. Rain runs across it, sunlight attacks the finish, dust sticks to the surface, snow and road salt can cover it for months. Gravel, mud, and small pieces of debris are thrown against it by passing tires. All the while, the plate vibrates with the car and absorbs the occasional knock. A freshly painted number can look perfectly clear. The problem appears later. What happens when the paint begins to disappear, but the plate still has years of service left? That was more than a cosmetic annoyance. The plate existed for one reason: to identify a vehicle. If part of the marking wore away, the object became worse at its main job. Paint could be improved, but it was still only a layer sitting on another material. Scratch that layer, fade it, or wear through enough of it, and part of the information could go with it. Manufacturers needed the identity of the vehicle to remain recognizable even when the surface aged. The solution was almost embarrassingly simple. Instead of trying to make the number stronger, they made the number part of the metal. How embossing solved several problems at once. A metal blank could be placed between shaped dies and squeezed under pressure until the letters and numbers rose from the sheet. Nothing needed to be glued on. No separate character had to be fixed afterward. The same piece of metal that formed the plate now formed the identification. The plate itself became the number. Paint was then applied to the raised areas, so the characters stood out clearly against the background. If the color later faded or was scratched away, the physical outline remained. That alone made embossing useful. But it also happened to fit the needs of mass production extremely well. Stamping presses could form characters quickly and with consistent shapes. A process that once might have involved several separate steps could now be repeated over and over with very little variation between plates. That became increasingly valuable as governments moved from producing thousands of plates to producing millions. The raised shapes brought another small advantage that is easy to overlook. Forming ribs and contours in thin metal makes it stiffer. Embossed characters therefore added a little rigidity to the plate, helping it resist bending and vibration during normal use. None of these benefits required complicated technology. Embossing worked because one simple operation solved several ordinary problems at the same time. The characters lasted, production scaled well, and the finished plate gained some extra stiffness. But durability and manufacturing were not the whole story. Those raised shapes also changed what happened when light struck the plate. Before cameras did the reading for us, a flat-printed character depends mostly on contrast. A raised character adds shape. When light hits the edge of an embossed number, one side can catch a highlight while the opposite side falls into shadow. Those tiny changes help the eye separate the character from the background, especially when the viewing angle is not perfect. Contrasting paint strengthens the effect. Today, cameras and automatic recognition systems do much of the work of reading plates. For most of the plate's history, however, the reader was a person, and that person might have only a few seconds. A passing car does not give you time to study typography. A police officer might need to identify a plate while the vehicle was moving from the side or under poor lighting. At night, headlights could pick up the contours of the raised characters and make their shapes easier to distinguish. Embossing did not make a plate magically visible. It simply gave the eye another clue besides color. That mattered in an era when identification often depended on someone looking quickly and remembering correctly. For decades, this combination of durable markings, fast production, and useful visibility gave manufacturers little reason to abandon stamping. Then another technology began changing the plate from the surface outward. Reflective sheeting changed the rules. Reflective sheeting transformed how license plates behaved at night. Instead of relying mainly on ordinary paint, the plate could now return light from a vehicle's headlights back toward the direction it came from. To the driver or observer near that light source, the entire plate appeared much brighter. Suddenly, the visibility advantage of raised characters mattered less. Printing improved too. Flat characters could be produced with durable inks, sharp edges, and consistent spacing, then protected with films and coatings designed to survive years outdoors. Digital production also allowed manufacturers to add features that stamping handled less easily: complex graphics, regional designs, security details, or customized visual elements. In some places, flat printing eventually replaced embossing altogether. By then, a plate no longer needed raised characters to be bright, durable, or readable. Modern recognition systems could also work with both flat and embossed designs. So the original engineering problem had largely been solved in another way. That should have made the old method disappear. But it didn't. If flat plates can now do the job, why are so many governments still stamping letters and numbers into metal? The answer has less to do with the plate itself than with everything built around it. The cost hidden behind a small change. A manufacturing method rarely exists by itself. An agency producing embossed plates may already own the presses. It may have production lines arranged around them, workers trained to operate them, suppliers providing compatible materials, technical standards defining the finished product, and quality control procedures built up over years. Replacing embossing therefore means more than replacing one machine. New equipment may need to be purchased, materials have to be tested, standards can require revision, regulations may need updating, suppliers change, workers retrain. The new plates still have to prove that they can survive weather, vibration, road debris, handling, and years of daily use. That is a surprisingly large amount of disruption for a small metal rectangle, especially when the existing version still works. Embossed plates remain readable. Police can identify them. Drivers recognize them. Automatic plate reading systems generally have no problem processing either raised or flat characters. So the meaningful question is not whether flat printing is newer. It is whether changing to it solves a problem serious enough to justify the cost of changing everything around the product. In many places, the answer is simply not compelling. Once machinery, standards, skills, suppliers, and regulations grow around a technology, replacing the object can mean replacing part of the system that supports it. That is why older designs often survive much longer than expected. They do not have to be perfect. Sometimes being reliable, familiar, and already paid for is enough. So why are embossed license plates still around? Because the method once solved several problems at once. It created durable identification, worked well at enormous scale, improved readability, and fit naturally into industrial production. Modern printing can now achieve much of the same result without physically raising the characters. But replacing a working method is not free. For many agencies, the machines already exist. The standards already exist. The workers know the process. The plates continue to perform their job. A newer alternative may be available without offering enough practical improvement to justify changing the whole system behind it. That is what makes those raised characters interesting. They are not simply leftovers from an older era. They are evidence of a solution that became so deeply embedded in everyday life that newer technology never gave everyone a strong enough reason to abandon it. Those small ridges in the metal are carrying more than a registration number. They carry the history of how an ordinary solution can become infrastructure. The raised characters are still there, not because nobody invented something newer, but because sometimes a simple idea works so well that the world quietly builds around it. What everyday detail should small things investigate next? Tell us below, and subscribe for more stories hidden inside the simplest things.